Welcome to today's edition of Mike Drops with your host, Elwin Green. And I am here today with my friend, Ivan Adu-Poku. And we are going to be talking about real estate today. Um, if any of you are familiar with my other channel, Homewood Nation, you know that there I have a series called Real Estate Investing for Broke Folk. And that entire series is actually based on um, what both Ivan and I have been learning in a mentorship that we're both a part of. And in fact, we met as participants in this mentorship when our mentor came up to the Pittsburgh area for a weekend, and we um, did like guerrilla real estate activity. Okay. And by guerrilla real estate activity, we didn't get any actual deals done that weekend, I don't think. Um, but man, we looked at so many houses, right? It was like we started something like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, as I
Yeah,
recall,
yeah,
and went until late dinner time, right? Um,
yeah,
and uh, and it was just a great. I'm going to say that for me, it was a great experience in real estate activity, right? And just kind of getting out, doing the work needed to begin to build a real estate portfolio. Um, but Ivan and I are just going to do some sharing about real estate, and my personal goal for this episode, and maybe even future conversations that Ivan and I might have together, are to help you folks realize the value of real estate as an investment vehicle or an investment path, and also the feasibility of real estate. I think a lot of people who know that real estate is valuable don't think that it's feasible for them to get involved in it, right?
mm,
Um, and so we want to help you folks see how it can be feasible to get started in real estate, just by doing some very basic levels of activity. And the entire approach to real estate that we're being taught even now or trained in by a mentor is one that would allow a person to buy a piece of property with no money out of their own pocket. Or at the very least, if they do have to pull money out of their pocket, then being able to get reimbursed or to pull that money back out of the deal within 6 to 12 months, right?
yeah,
So the whole idea is to be able to do it, preferably with no cash out of pocket, and also not needing to have a great credit score, right? Not
yeah.
needing to have wonderful income, none of that stuff, right? So, so that's it. That's what we're going to be sharing about. Um, and I don't know if I mentioned, but the weekend that we met was a little over a year ago. Well, actually,
Yeah.
was it like September of last year?
I think it was like September or November, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and so I'm going to report that Ivan has gotten farther down the path than I have. All right. He picked up his first deal. Um, Not too long after that, I actually have my first deal started, but we'll get into more of that later. We'll talk more about that stuff later. But
yeah.
Mr. Ivan, so first off, just to reflect back on that weekend, how was that for you?
Well, for me, that weekend was a great experience. Just to kind of see what like a boots on the ground approach to real estate truly was. And after maybe seeing your first, second house, and okay, I know kind of what's going on. But after seeing, I don't know, I think we saw like 12, 13, maybe 14 houses. And I was even late during the day, so I didn't make it to the full. So um, after, walking through the property with Joe, who's obviously very experienced, he knows what he's doing. Him just looking at something, flooring, paint, he would just eyeball a property and then kind of give you like a brief idea of how much a rehab would cost or how much a property should be priced. Doing some on the fly. I know at that time you could pull up batch leads or prop screen and you could just run comps in the area and basically right then and there figure out how much, if you wanted to buy that property, how much you pay for it right then and there. So it was like you were kind of taking the pen and paper application that we had, from listening to some calls and taking notes, but actually using the notes that you've taken, in different, classes and stuff like that in real time, and there's no, and the best kind of knowledge is applied knowledge, because it's like, okay, well, everything's great in theory, but you learn more when you actually, are applying it. So I think we had an opportunity to, take that pen and paper notes down and actually apply it into the real world. And I think that experience was definitely just, just a great experience to see how it feels to kind of, go, go all out, and, our mentor, Joe, he's not an old man, but he's an older individual. He's not like he's 23 years old, 24 years old, so to see him, with the pace that he had, in terms of just looking at the properties, it just kind of lit a fire underneath me. And it's okay, well, like if he can do this, I don't think anybody has any excuse, to not. It's simple as picking up the phone,
Right.
talking to an agent. Agents are going to want to make money, so they'll go out of their way to, to set up some appointments to view some properties, give them your, schematics or, your framework of what you're looking for, and they'll put together a list and they'll show you every single property because, if you buy one, they're gonna make a commission off of it. So it's, in their best interest to, you know, show houses because that's how to make money. So it's like you have to learn to make those contacts. Like you got to make some contacts when we were out there. The agent that we were walking through the property with, I think she knew some contractors and some other people in the area who also sell property. So it's like one of those things that when you get out into the field, you never know who you may come across who may know about real estate or know somebody who's selling a property, know somebody who's in pre-foreclosure. You never know who is, where the next opportunity is until you actually get your, you take the first step, dip your toe in the water, jump in, so to speak. So for me, that experience, it was cool to see, so it definitely made me, take that more boots on the ground approach rather than just kind of like, behind a computer making phone calls. But, I just say, let me get out there and just look at these properties. Because the more you see, the more you can look at things and you pick up on things a little quicker. You're able to analyze deals a lot quicker. You're able to, practice your pitch a little better, so that you're able to cut down on the time it's spent, so you're not wasting, your time with deals that don't make sense, so to speak. So, you know, I really did, although that experience for me was not the first time I really had done or looked at that many houses in,
Hmm.
that time span, so
Right. Right.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
How did you become interested in real estate?
Me personally, I I've always been interested in real estate. I remember the first time I started to kind of go down my like personal development journey or trying to, you know, read self-help books. The first book that I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, and he talked about real estate. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really good. I think I was like, I don't know, like 16 or 17 years old at the time. I didn't know anything, I couldn't really do much, but that it always was a seed that was planted, in me from when I was like young. But
I'm sorry. Pause, please. I I'm going to ask you to back up. How old were you when you said you read it?
like 17 years old.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in high school,
Yeah, I
basically.
was in high school. Yeah, it was
Okay.
it, it,
Okay.
it was actually pretty random because I was scrolling on the World Wide Web as we do when we're at school, and
Hmm.
it was like one of those random things where like an ad or something popped up and it said "Rich Dad Poor Dad," like learn the secrets of how so and so and people become. And I'm like, you know what? What the heck? I'm just gonna read it. So I read it in my mind when I was 17 years old. I couldn't really conceptualize, but I kind of had like a vague understanding of what he was saying, but like for me, it wasn't at that time very applicable. But it definitely did say, okay, well, real estate is a vehicle that you can use to be successful in some way, shape, or form. So I always had that in my back of my mind. But I was an athlete, so I focused on sports all through high school and then college, and then once I ultimately hung up my cleats, then it was okay. Well, we're going to try to choose a different career path. Graduated, got my degree. Um, I worked at an IT firm for about a year and a half. It wasn't really for me. I love to be out and talking to people, in the community. I was really big into health and fitness. I did competitive bodybuilding for a couple years, so my wife and I were both really, really into fitness. So at that time we pivoted, and then we opened up like a health and wellness shop, and we grew our team, grew our business. We had a couple shops that aren't opened up within our organization, which afforded us some residual income that we didn't have to work to make a paycheck. So that basically
Okay.
um, you know gave us a little more comfortable life. And then also being in the business opportunity that I was in, we always had all these seminars.
Mm,
So
mm,
17 years old, fast forward to graduating college, not really pursuing my degree, you know, because I just didn't really feel like I wanted to do that.
mhm,
And then coming to these seminars, people kind of talking about their experience with the business that we're in, and how much money they're making. So I'm like, all right, well, I ain't making no money right now because I didn't continue, on from government intern to being a full time worker there because I wasn't really passionate about it at the time.
mhm,
And I said, you know what, I'm going to be something different. So I said, hey, what the heck, So, but then I heard people share, about how much money they're making, and I saw the potential of people saying, hey, like, yeah, I've made $40,000 last month. I'm like, $40,000 in a month? I'm like, what?
mm,
And as I got to more and more of these seminars, we hear more and more people speak. We were able to take our, the information they're giving us and apply it to ourselves, and kind of build our own business. But then also rubbing shoulders and being in the room with people who are very, very successful, and just kind of being a fly on the wall. And the one thing, like, I've always heard little quotes that I always bring resonate for me is like, success leaves clues. And it's like, I love the people who are doing very well. One thing that I noticed is that a lot of people who are very, very successful, whether you're investing in Bitcoin, whether you're Shopify, or ecom, whatever your thing is, a lot of people, some way, shape, or form, they all own real estate. That was
mm,
always a common denominator. So, I guess I'm getting off the rails a little bit, but fast forward, I think it was about a year or two after we were pretty established. I personally just went down a deep hole in terms of learning about business credit and, how to structure business, learning about how to just do everything. I bought into a couple of mentorship groups, and ultimately I joined Rad's mentorship group. And then from Rad's mentorship group, then I've been joining the mentorship I'm in right now. So it was like, okay, well, I went from, learning about, business funding and all these things you could learn, these tools. And then it was just like, I didn't know that the real estate was going to come um, uh, from that, but
mhm,
it was literally like, it's probably the biggest blessing because it was like, I knew that's what I ultimately wanted, but I just at that time there's so many people online talking about real estate. There's like you get shiny object syndrome. And
right.
everybody
Right.
has a Lamborghini, and they're talking about, oh yeah, just do this and you'll be rich, and it's like I'm like, oh, that's great and all, but it's like, okay, well, I bought some ebooks and things like that. Some of the information was very just decent information, but it wasn't like life changing information. But then I came across our mentorship group. I heard, Joe speak a couple of times. I'm like, I've never heard anybody present it and break it down as simple as he did. And I'm like, wow, this is like, so I said, I
Mhm.
got to sign up, So like, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's like my first, what was the question was again, what my first experience with real estate was?
How did you get started? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
So
or what
yeah.
what led to your interest in real estate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll give you a little backstory. Yeah, so my interest in real estate was, just from seeing people who were successful. A lot of them having, real estate. And the thing about it is like, okay, well, everybody, there's there's only a barrier of entry to things if you let there be a barrier of entry to things. You have to go seek something if you want to find it. Because if you say I want to be wealthy, I want to be this, I want to be that, and you just sit at home all day and don't take any action, don't expect anything to come from you just saying you want. You can write all people write affirmations. I write affirmations. You can pray and but I say if you want God to bless you, you got to meet Him halfway. You know, faith without
Mhm.
works is dead. So you
Mhm.
can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't take a step off into the wilderness and you don't have to have any challenges, then you you have to be able to you got to be able to walk before you can run. So I think that you have in the wilderness is where you kind of learn how to figure out yourself. You figure out how you handle challenges. When I bought my first property, I faced a lot of that adversity, a lot of challenges. Um, but you just got to push through. And there's always a solution. There's always a way to get it done. You just have to continue just to push through. So that's how I got that's how I got started. I know it was a very long-winded explanation, but
So I want to bounce off something, maybe even a couple of things. And so you spoke about how um, before coming into the mentorship and having this interest in real estate, you would go online and see all of these different programs or all courses or whatever, right? Shiny object syndrome is the term that you use there. And uh, I just kind of I want to affirm the reality of my own experience insofar as I'm an old guy, right? And I've been interested in real estate pretty much my entire life. I really um, began to read up on real estate all the way back in 1980 when a guy named Robert Allen came out with a book called Nothing Down. And Nothing Down kind of launched this whole, I don't want to call it a movement, but this whole phenomenon,
mm,
right? Number one of what came to be known as creative financing, right? Which is
yeah,
where you find a motivated seller
they're
who's
out
who's
there.
will- who's willing most of the time to finance a deal, right?
Yeah,
Or maybe you can figure out a way to structure a deal so that it's part seller financing and part um, a mortgage from a bank, whatever. But I was saying all of that really to say that from Robert Allen's book in 1980, this whole creative financing world just kind of grew. And people were always doing that stuff, right? But it was not
yeah,
always publicly known, right? Real estate investors have been doing what real estate investors do like forever, right?
yeah.
But the general public didn't know about most of this stuff before Robert Allen came along. And after Robert Allen, there was a guy named Carlton Sheets
Mm.
who came out with a cassette program. I think I still have some of his tapes somewhere in the house here.
And the
Um,
Walkman,
hmm?
you got it in the Walkman.
No, um, yes, actually, yes, yeah, yeah, the cassette tapes, right? Yeah,
There you go.
um, but then this whole phenomenon kind of grew of these gurus, as they eventually came to be known as, um, presenting different real estate courses, and that has continued to the present day. We're now in perhaps our third generation of real estate gurus
Yeah,
who all have their own courses to offer. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm in any way um, denigrating or downgrading these guys. The information is actually really good information. I
Hmm.
think in most instances, if you do what is actually presented, right, then you will do well. The challenge, and this is what all of this is leading up to, for me, I became really, really good at buying courses, then not doing the work.
Hey, I hear you on that one, brother.
Okay. So one of the things that brought me into this mentorship was the very idea of mentorship, right? That is not just us receiving information, it's us having a relationship with a mentor who can offer one-on-one guidance. It's us being part of a community, right,
Yeah,
of fellow mentees who are fellow learners and fellow real estate investors, right?
yeah,
So for folks who are listening um, or watching, we may dive into more into the mechanics of actually doing a deal, but I think we can both agree that for someone getting started, it's really, really important to find a mentor, right? Because it can be so easy to just spend years, and I'm not
yeah,
exaggerating, to spend years gathering information, right? Gathering
yeah,
information, right? Without ever actually getting out there and doing it. So, number one, I would say if you want to venture into doing real estate, then it's fine to buy a course or whatever, but also find a mentor, find somebody who's willing in some way, shape, or form to kind of walk alongside you. And you don't necessarily have to buy, quote, a mentor, which is kind of what we did. You know, if you become part of a real estate investment group in your area, you can probably find somebody who's willing to share some wisdom with you, who's willing to spend some time with you. If they see that you're serious, because people who are in the business love to see other people who are serious coming into the business. And this, for me, was one of the biggest lessons that it took me a while to absorb because my mindset said that people who are already in the business um, would be gatekeepers who are trying to prevent other people from getting into the business, right?
mm,
And it took me a long time to realize that, oh, actually, people who are in the business, when they see somebody who's serious about coming into the business, they want to help that person because that person is a potential partner for future deals, right?
yep, yep,
So, um, and that kind of goes to the second thing that I had mentioned. The first thing is that we have a mentor. The second thing is that we are part of a community. Um, if you're in any major city in the United States, there is a real estate investment club of some kind in your city. Go there,
yeah,
become part of that community, get to know the people there, let them get to know you. Those are like two of the first things that I would suggest. And actually, the second one that I mentioned would be the first one, like become part of a community, become part of your real estate investment group in your area, and there you are likely to find a mentor, or you have a good chance of finding a mentor. And having a mentor and a community are two of the best things that you can do for yourself to help you get started.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. I mean, and to piggyback off of that too, it's like also if you ask somebody who's like successful in anything, you know, how they got to where they got, they want, they are. people do enjoy talking about themselves to a certain extent, so it's like
Hmm.
they're going to be more than open to saying like, oh well, I did this, I did this, I did that, and then one thing I've learned is just ask the right questions. It's like when you get into a room, when you get into a place, and you're talking to people, there's reason why you have two ears and you got one mouth. So it's like listen, was you never want to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, get them to a different room. You hopefully want to be somewhere in the middle. Or if you're in the bottom range, if you're a beginner, just ask questions. Oh, how do you get involved in real estate? How did you get your first deal done? Oh, awesome. It's like, and then it's like you can have one question build upon another question, build upon another question, and you can answer questions that you didn't even think of by just allowing the conversation to flow and kind of building upon the questions that you ask, because it's like you may think that like, oh well, there's like I don't know how to get the point from the point A to point B, but it's like, you can just ask, oh, how did I get started in real estate? It's a very vague, it's a very vague question. Well, you could do a lot of things to get started in real estate.
Hmm.
You have to kind of know the kind of person that you are. Are you a person who's going to want to dictate, spend a lot of time, in the field? Are you a more hands-on person? Are you a more hands-off person? Are you somebody who wants to manage? So it's like you got to kind of figure out how you are, and maybe by having conversations with people, asking them about their experiences, and having that kind of information, then you can kind of make an informed. Hey, maybe I'm leaning towards maybe wholesaling, or flipping, or maybe buy and hold, or do some creatively, whatever that investing in an RV park, whatever that may be, you know, you can figure out what that may be. But one thing I would say, just from my personal experience, just my short time doing what I'm doing, is don't get paralysis by analysis by looking at like, oh my gosh, like, well, I can make money, or I can be successful doing this, I can be successful doing that. Pick one and just do it. And
Hmm.
any of the other opportunities that come along, they'll come along when they're going to come along. And as long as you educate yourself about how to maybe, whether it's, sell a deal that doesn't work out for you, or, wholesale, or, buy and hold, whatever, the opportunities will come the more you immerse yourself in the world. You're like, okay, well, hey, I got a deal that, it's not working out for me because my capital ran dry, something, or whatever it is. Then you might know somebody in the real estate investment group, or somebody you may know. Hey, man, do you know anybody who want to buy this property in this area? Here are the numbers. And they're like, yeah, I'll take it. And it's like, okay, well, if you were going to lose the deal. But then all of a sudden, you were talking to a gentleman who was in the right place at the right time, who wanted to invest in that property. And now, even though you may not be a wholesaler, you might get, a wholesale fee by assigning the deal to a person. So it's like, I would say, pick one thing, and get some experience doing that one thing. And then once you feel like you kind of got a decent handle on that thing,
Hmm.
excuse me, then you can try to say, hey, let me try to implement this into my my journey, what I'm trying to do. Don't just be like, well, I'm gonna do a wholesale, I'm gonna do a flip, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that. But then you're gonna be like this. I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at this. I'm trying to invest in this market. I'm trying to invest in this market. I'm trying to invest in this market. I'm trying to invest here. So it's like you get the shiny object
Right.
syndrome. And then also one other thing too, if you do join a mentorship group, which I definitely recommend doing, try to tailor the information that you take in to like what you're learning. So if you're learning, so let's say if your approach is going to be like, buy and hold, don't listen to somebody who's talking about, flipping real estate all the time, because it's
Hmm.
like it's gonna divide your focus, because what he's offering probably is definitely valuable information, but it's like right now you just need to be focused on what your mentorship group is, or the the content or information that's going to fit into the box that you're trying to focus on, because if you have laser focus on something, you have your blinders on, you're able to get a lot more things done, because you're not looking around. You're just focused on, this is the task at hand. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to get this done. And then once you get it done, then maybe you want to broaden your horizons. You can, so
Mhm.
from my experience being in the beginning stages, I had a lot of paralysis by analysis. I looked at so many different people who had different ways of doing everything, from all the gurus you see on there. I bought some of the classes and listened to some of the things, and I'm just like, okay, well, this seems cool, but I didn't, do it. And then, oh, I'll try, like you said, I'll do this course and I'll watch these videos. Oh, cool. I don't know to do it. Then I finally stumbled across the group I'm in right now, and I took, and it just felt, it resonated with me that, hey, I'm in the right place at the right time. This is where, I'm going to go, move forward with it, and shoot it, give it a go. And I said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, you know, preferably in real estate, I feel like you probably want to, like you said, Elwin said, if you have a mentor. So basically, you want to learn from the mistakes of others who go before you, rather than having to learn maybe those expensive mistakes on your own. Because obviously, you're gonna make mistakes, But if you can avoid, you know, some in the beginning, you save yourself some money,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just learn from the people who came before you.
So, so I just want to just piggyback a little by making sure that folks understand some of the terminology that you were tossing out there, because we who are involved in this world, we begin to use the language of this world. So, so if anybody doesn't yet know what these things are, there's wholesaling, there's fix and flip, and there's buy and hold, and those
Mm-hmm.
are like kind of the three basic approaches or the three basic strategies that are involved in real estate investing. Wholesaling is where actually it's not, I would not even call that investing, I would call that trading, right?
Mm.
Because the idea in wholesaling is you find a property that you can buy at a discounted price, okay?
Yes.
And then once you have that property under contract, you take that contract to somebody else and you sell that to somebody who actually wants to buy the house, right?
Yes.
And who actually
Yep.
wants to do something with the house. So you're in and out, right? Wholesaling can be a very effective way just to make some quick money, right?
Yeah.
So if you get a property under contract for a nice low price, then you can turn around and sell that contract to an investor for like $5,000. Okay, and you're done. You don't have to do anything with that property at all. You're done, right?
Yep.
You got the
No.
5,000. You can go to the next
No
one.
fixing. No fixing the roofs. No deal with the tenant. Nothing.
Right,
You're
right,
just the
right, right,
middleman.
right. And the second approach that has gotten so much attention, and I didn't even mention before, but this whole progress and development of a greater interest in real estate, the TV shows,
Mm.
right? The home and garden, what H&G TV or whatever,
Yeah.
HGTV, I
HGTV.
guess it is.
Yeah.
All of the shows where people are flipping properties, right? You buy a property at a discounted price, and it's discounted because it needs some work on it, and you buy it, you fix it up, and then you sell it, right? As quickly as possible,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so that's fix and flip, right? And then there's buy and hold, which is where you buy a property, and again, you're looking for something that needs some work done on it so that you can get it at a discounted price. Everything begins with buying it at a discounted price,
Yes.
because that discount in the price is what creates the profit, whichever way you're going to wind up taking the profit. So you um, buy a property that needs some work, and you do the work that it needs or have that work done to bring the value of the property up,
Yes.
right? And so what you want at the beginning is a property that you can buy for less than what similar properties are selling for around it, right? And you're able to buy it for less because it needs some work on it, right?
Yeah.
So you're able to buy it for less, you get the work done, you bring the value up, and now you have, a nice chunk of equity in the
Yep.
property, and you're also able to get cash flow by renting it out.
Yeah.
The mentorship that we are both involved in is one that focuses on buy and hold. All right. So we are out here looking for places that we can um, buy at a discount because they need some work on it, get them fixed up, and then rent them out with positive cash flow. And I'm going to pause there to see if you want to chime in on anything else before we go to the next thing. Because what I want to do is I want to share the formula with our
No.
folks.
Hey. I mean, I think you're covering everything perfectly right now. So, I'll pop in if I feel like I need to pop in. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head right now.